I'm in the Ozark Mountains. Good to have you here with me as we move into the next chapter of my book project, School by the Smokies. The choices we make in life leave behind a visible trail called character, unknown. Chapter 8, the trail prepares us for itself. Hey y'all, Dan here. Thanks for joining me.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me.
When the thought of hiking the Appalachian Trail began to stir in my heart, my mind began discouraging me from even attempting such a crazy thing. My heart said, I'm in pretty good health and I don't know what the future holds. My mind answered, you have diabetes and your feet are going numb. Your back has given you chronic pain since you were injured in an Army parachute accident. My heart said, I need this to heal from years of emotional cuts and bruises of life. My mind screamed, you're not ready. This conversation repeated itself as I walked. The trail seemed to interrupt my internal debate and said, you're not ready, but I'll train you along the way. I will prepare you for myself. The trail's classroom opened before I officially began walking on her well-worn lanes. It began as my brother Rick and friend Kevin and I walked through the arched gateway and up the approach trail toward the natural water presentation of Amicalola Falls. After a short walk around the parking lots and following the pretty stream that flowed by this path, we arrived at the base of the waterfall. And there were the staircases that stood between us and the remainder of the approach trail to Springer Mountain. I trudged up more than 600 steps with 30 pounds of backpack strapped to my body. At about the midway point, my pack felt like it had grown in size and weight. With every future mountain ascent, I would recall the feeling of air starvation while being drawn to this indescribable beauty. Here was my first lesson of learning from the trail as she prepared me for my next lesson. Beyond climbing the stairs at Amicalola and standing on the summit of Springer Mountain, I don't remember much about that first day. I felt appreciated as Rick and Kevin hiked with me. Their presence was a wonderful gift. I remember the unseasonable warm weather, blue skies and bright sun. There were many challenging climbs ahead. Often the descents were as challenging as the ascents. One ominous landmark was Blood Mountain, and its reputation was fierce. Standing at more than 4,400 feet, it claims to be the tallest mountain on Georgia's portion of the Appalachian Trail. And it's the first real hurdle for northbound hikers. The 2-mile hike up the mountain was strenuous, but not as challenging as I had anticipated. However, the descent was another story. Loose rocks, large rocks, slick rocks, and sheer rock faces greeted the wanderer with many opportunities to fall. I went slowly down these obstacles, slipping and sliding all the way. It was dry and warm as I made this journey. Only a few weeks earlier, fellow hikers had completed this part of the trail in deep snow and ice. I was thankful they were safe and I didn't have to endure their experience. Blood Mountain boosted my confidence. The trail had gifted me with a successful feeling. I had not conquered the old mountain. She continued to stand, her reputation intact, and would continue to intimidate future generations of hikers. She would gladly challenge me should I ever pass this way again. No, I didn't conquer. I persevered and learned from the trail's teaching. She prepared me for another lesson that she had in mind a few days later. My hiking buddy, Mike, and I had climbed up and down Blood Mountain, and we hiked several days together. After Neal's Gap, we continued onward. The weather remained unseasonably warm and dry. However, we arrived at Low Gap as dark clouds began to fill the sky, and around 2 o'clock in the morning, those clouds emptied themselves onto the trail. The heavy rain fell to the rhythm of loud thunder and flashing lightning. After a couple of hours, I packed my gear inside the protection of my tent. Finally, braving the cold rain, I dropped the tent, rolled it into its little sack, strapped it to the top of my backpack, and started off down the trail. In the beginning, I walked along the side of the trail, trying to avoid the streaming water that flowed toward me. Eventually, the trail taught me the futility of trying to walk on dry ground. There was no dry ground. I was now fording the Appalachian stream, and the water rose to the bottom of my pants legs. And after surrendering to wet feet, I began to realize that I was not uncomfortable. My shoes and darn tough wool socks kept my feet reasonably warm. My fears of dying from hypothermia subsided, and I enjoyed trudging along in the rain. Another lesson taught and learned. My time in the Smokies was nearing an end. The last night and the following day hiking through these ancient mountains. She offered me Mount Camera, and I'm so glad that I accepted the gift. This was the most intimate experience of the journey. I climbed the boulders for about a quarter of a mile to reach the stone and wooden two-story structure that was a fire tower on top of the mountain. Inside the second-story, wooden rafters were designed in a circular pattern. Windows surrounded the exterior wall. Many of the windows were broken, covered with cloth or metal sheets that were partially nailed in place, but their corners flapped in the wind and banged against the window frames. The wind blew through the many openings and whirled around inside of the building. The wood floor was warped in places, but there was plenty of level space to lay my air mattress and sleeping bag. I also set up the little backpack stove to boil water for my dinner and tea. I emptied my backpack and inventoried my gear. Everything was accounted for, and now I could enjoy the evening. It was a wonderful setting. The sky was blue, and there were a few puffy clouds pushed along by the wind. The trees below were brown with hints of spring green, created by fresh leaves that were beginning to pop from their buds. The trees stretched across the valleys and up the neighboring mountains. The mountains extended to the sky. The little fire observation structure was built with a walkway that surrounded the outside of the second story level and gave me a 360-degree panoramic view. The sunset was awesome. My mental lesson seeped into my spirit as I sat on the edge of the walkway, drinking in hot tea and the beauty of creation. I felt deep peace for the first time in my memory. There were no demands, no expectations, no interruptions, only me sitting in the midst of creation, feeling the intimacy of the Creator. The trail had prepared me for this moment, and I was ready to receive it. I've written before that the trail is a soulful experience. There are gifts for our body, mind, and spirit. Here on top of Mount Camera, the gifts merged into one spectacular evening. It was an altering experience. The next morning was beautiful too. I woke before the sunset and peered down from my perch. The valleys below were dotted with lights of home and farmsteads, businesses and villages, which revealed that the world was preparing for a new day. The sun began to change the colors of the sky. At first, there were the subtle hues of pastel blues, purples, and pinks. Then bright yellow and red rays shot up from the eastern horizon to announce day is here, and it was glorious. I repacked my gear and said farewell to my wonderful home of the night and began climbing back down the boulders that led to the path that led to the trail. Feeling rested and lighter, I walked the final 4 miles to the northern terminus of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, where I deposited the second half of my permit and walked on. I reached the roadway, marking 241 miles of the trail completed. However, the distance was inconsequential as I realized that not every adventure can be measured in miles.
I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way. If you ever get lost, or if the trail leads you astray, the music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. Round up the troops and get the gang to come.